All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome back to another Learning Tech Talks, where we are continually exploring the landscape of learning and workplace tech. We've expanded the scope, and you know what? We're not even just tech, even though that's probably a majority of the bend, just because I love it so much. But I am talking with Michael Guastamacchio. Did I get it right?
Nailed it.
Okay. All right. So what was you said I was probably going to butcher it, which I told you I probably would, which I kind of did because I actually paused like mid name. But you said there's more to it. So actually now I'm really curious because I have to imagine I'm not the only person who had gotten stuck on that one.
Yeah, I've heard Guastamacchio, some permutation of like guacamole.
Guacamole. Okay.
Yeah. But
okay.
No, you did great, man.
All right. Well, I told you, I actually wrote it down phonetically so that I would try and remember it. But what's funny is even looking at it, that's why I stopped mid. I'm like, wait a minute, did I? Okay, here we go. So anyway, I love when that happens because it's always fun, interesting conversations. People call me Chris all the time, and I'm like, well, no, not exactly, but all right, we're close. So you're the CEO of MediaZilla, and for those of you who are just joining, feel free to comment in. Let us know where you are. But we're talking about enterprise video done right, and you may be thinking, video? I mean, isn't that just like a big trend? Isn't video everywhere? Well, stay tuned because while it's everywhere, we talk a lot about extraordinary experience, and all video experience is not created equal. So we're gonna get into what that actually means and what that looks like. But before we do, so Michael, I'm asking everybody to comment and say where they're from, but I guess I should ask you as well. Where are you right now, location-wise, and home office building, hotel? Like, where are you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm in Southern California, in the city of Long Beach. So I'm actually in WeWork. I'm in one of the conference room. My office is just across the hall. So This is where I come in most days, but our team's actually dispersed globally. But I'm physically, in Southern California.
Okay. All right. And is it, so SoCal, if I talk to folks in like the Bay Area, they've got their own microclimates and they've got all that. SoCal, is that a little more the like stereotypical weather that people think of when they think of California? Have you had the heat wave? I talked to people in LA and he was like, oh, it's brutal right now.
Yeah. About a week ago. Yeah, it was pretty nasty. You got up to like 106 on the weekend, but it's kind of it's tamed down now, so it's not too bad.
All right. Now, have you always been in the Southern California area?
Yeah, I grew up here. I grew up not too far away in Seal Beach. And then I went to UCLA up in the west side in West LA.
Right.
So yeah, I've been SoCal native, born and raised, which is kind of rare, but.
All right. Well, are you into like, because when I think people growing up in Southern California, a lot of the folks I know who grew up, surfers, skaters, like that kind of, I mean, are you surfer skater, or was it like, no, that actually is not a stereotype that fits me whatsoever?
Did the skateboarding, didn't do surfing as much, but definitely did some skate. We actually have some on the platform, some videos my co-founder and I have when we were, because we grew up together. So we have some old school skateboard videos when we were like,
really?
Teens. Yeah, pretty fun stuff.
Do you still ride?
I don't ride. Mainly, I ride my bike. I have a road bike, so I do that.
All right. And the only reason I see, kind of total random thing, but for those who've been following me, my kids asked me to teach them to skateboard, and I skateboarded maybe for like 6 months when I was like 14, and I thought, yeah, sure, I'll pick that up. Just turning 40, why not? I'm sure it's not that big of a deal, and lot harder to learn than I expected, but it's been a blast. Now, granted, my wife is still not happy because my right leg looks like I just decided to, skid down and took sandpaper to it because I just ate it the other day. But I'm still enjoying it. So anyway, that's some of the curiosity behind it. Childhood friend is also your co-founder. So was this something back? You're riding in the pools, hitting jumps and olling all over stuff, and you go, you know what? Someday we should create an enterprise video platform. Was that in the cards?
Yeah, I don't know if we had the enterprise vision back in the day, but yeah. I mean, the backstory, my co-founder and also his older brother, we grew up together. We actually grew up down the street from each other. So we've known each other since we were about 10, 11 years old. And used to skateboard, and then it basically started like early stages getting into video. So his older brother, they got a camera, and we just started filming stuff. So we'd film
like the old school one you had to like hold on
they
the
had
side.
one of those. Like even our family, we had one of the old school Betamax, like the handheld ones.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's like a briefcase, on your shoulder, Beta too. But then the cameras got a little smaller. So like the S video, like smaller cameras. So we actually started filming like
cam things.
Yeah. We started filming like skateboard events, and then we actually started making like just silly, funny home movies for like high school projects and things like that. I remember I had to do a Spanish project. So I did it in Spanish, like the world's dumbest criminals. I remember that was like a video. I think I still have that at home, probably my mom's.
It's funny you bring this up because so I know we're going on a trip down memory lane, which is like, oh, I love this show because who knows where we go with it. But and I would also be curious, people who watch this, if you have any funny childhood video memories. But high school Spanish video is one of the most vivid memories I have because I was like the TJ Detweiler from recess of the class. And like, I didn't want to do an actual Spanish project where I had to actually do anything. So similar, we made a Spanish video where we're like, let's do like the stupidest things that you could possibly do, but we'll have the conversations in Spanish. And we almost flunked it. But the only reason we didn't is because we kept all the bloopers. And then we put that at the end of the video. And the teacher watched the bloopers and went, you spent so much time saying over and over all the Spanish. You actually did probably more work than anybody, but we had so much fun doing it. And so honestly, the bloopers, all the flubs, that's actually what ended up getting us the A on it. So it's funny that we both have childhood Spanish video memories. Interesting.
That's awesome.
Okay, so video's been in your blood from way back when.
Yeah. And kind of that, that morphed a little bit. We started, making these projects, and then my co-founder Jonathan, his older brother, actually went to film school, so he had to do student projects. And then we got like real deep into DVD and Blu-ray when there was director's commentary and deleted scenes and things like that. We would go down the rabbit hole. So we'd like watch a movie, and then we go back and watch the director's commentary because we just
watch like the 8 hours of additional stuff.
Yeah, you like watch a 2.5-hour movie, and then you watch another 2.5. And sometimes they'd have two. They would have like director's commentary and actor's commentary. But it was just fascinating to like get inside their head. They're like, okay, yeah, this shot, the way we filmed it, the lighting. So it was just like really early on, we had this like deep
affinity for video.
Yeah, just this passion for video as a medium, as a communication medium, telling stories. It was just really, really incredible, and that just kind of kept blossoming. And then we actually we ran our own video production company together. So the three of us, we had a company called Guava Street Productions. So we actually, as crazy as it sounds, we were actually like one of the leading event filmmakers for huge Indian weddings. So
really,
like these big, like $500,000, $1 million weddings where they have, the bride and groom or the bride coming in on an elephant, on a horse, like 500,000 people, at St. Regis, things like that. So it's pretty interesting.
That's great. Okay, so it's not like video was something that you just had nothing to do with and then randomly thought, you know what, we should create a video, hosting company. It was like, it was in your blood. You'd seen the ins and outs, the complexity of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then, so you started MediaZilla. How do you describe that to people when people say media? What is that? What is that company that you run? How do you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, we start really just saying, we help people deliver the world's most important videos. That's kind of the thing we focus on the most. And, there's a ton of, features and functionality. At the end of the day, it's, if you have a really important, incredible video or story to tell, we're the place to come. And, you're not going to, the stuff that's on our platform, the stuff that people are using, it's not the stuff that's
gave some great examples.
It's not Charlie bit my finger. It's not cat videos. You're not going to see, Red Lobster, Cheddar Bay biscuit ads on a pre-roll. Like none of that. Like that has its place. I get it. Like I watch videos on YouTube, but I jokingly say,
so are you suggesting that you're not going to get lost and lose like 3 days in absolute nonsense if you're on the platform? Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah, we don't have a recommendation engine, so you're not going to go down the rabbit hole and then you're like like, wait, why am I watching a video on thermodynamics?
We never landed on the moon. I figured it out because I was on YouTube last night.
Thermodynamics, like who knew? Like, oh.
Okay.
Crazy.
Well, but I have to imagine to some degree that has to be a question that comes up. Like when you describe this, when people go, well, we do this, and they go, well, yeah, isn't that what YouTube is for? I mean, you describe some of those things, but as you look at it, what made you decide, like, what was really the inception of saying, we need to go do this differently? Because yes, there's been video hosting platforms out there for a long time, and honestly, a lot of tech platforms anymore have some sort of video hosting workflow in them. So then why say, no, we're going to go do it. We're going to go do it differently.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I mean, originally our thesis, even the name MediaZilla, we want to be like, the Godzilla of media. And even like a sidebar there, we actually got contacted by the Godzilla Corporation called Toho Limited, really? Because we had a logo that had a quote unquote reptilian theme. So we had to actually like modify our logo when we first came out. I still have one of the original shirts like with the logo, but that was like that was kind of like a funny story. But
I almost feel like that's a badge of honor to get on their radar and have them even reach out and go, hey, you're in some way infringing on this. Because so many things would just go under, they'd be like, oh, whatever, this isn't even something worth caring about. So obviously you caught their attention.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, really the genesis, originally we wanted to capture kind of all media. So we were thinking, hey, like our original thesis, we said, hey, why not have all your media in one central place? Like, why do you have your media in all these disparate places? And this was a number of years ago. So this was back in like 2012, 2013, when we were kind of brainstorming some of the ideas. But we said, hey, because we actually ran a previous company in professional video called Precomposed. We were creating these beautiful menu templates for Adobe Encore using, you can customize it with After Effects, and they were really great. So we knew this industry really, really well. We produced films and high quality production and things like that. So we're like, okay, well, let's start with the video. Let's start there because we know that medium. And we're like, okay, well, what's out there right now, and what are the things that we dislike? The first was ads for sure. Just like, YouTube. Again, I watch YouTube all the time. I watch videos on there. There's great content creators and stuff like that.
Sure, but the ad experience is absolutely atrocious. Yeah, and it's only getting worse. I feel like it used to be bad. It's gone from, I pay for premium just because I have kids that use it. And I'm like, I don't want you watching half of these ads that pop up that I have zero control over.
Yeah. And that was a big part of it. Just saying like, that type of experience, and then kind of this recommendation algorithm, and then even potentially going to competitors like, okay, well, we don't want to support that. Like John and I talked early on, and we're like, no, that's not going to be how we're going to monetize that. Because what we found is that a lot of platforms that go down that route, they're kind of beholden to advertising because they're saying, okay, well, that's the only way we're really making money. So we're like, okay, we don't want just almost like.
And then their demands, I have to imagine, just get bigger and bigger and bigger because they realize, well, everybody's skipping like the front loaded ad that they can skip. So how do we get in front of folks more and more and more? So you're beholden to that.
So that was one big piece of it, and I would say another there was a equally as important piece was creating this amazing user experience. So kind of going back to our early days of DVD and Blu-ray and having this beautiful menu that you can navigate and you have multiple videos and just this great experience. We wanted to recreate that because what we saw with Netflix and most other services, when they moved away from physical media, they got rid of a lot of the experience. They just had a standalone video. I have an embedded video. Even Vimeo, like people forget they actually came out before YouTube, but you have an embedded video, and you didn't have this menu system. You didn't have this beautiful experience. And also it's very common that you have multiple videos for the same project. Like that's a really, really common use case.
Yeah.
And so true. Do you want 56 videos embedded on a page? Do you want 56 links? You're like, wait, why does that have to exist?
Right. If these are all directly interconnected, why do we need to have disparate things?
Yeah. So that was a huge part. And what was awesome is we had this idea, and then this is right around the time that HTML5 came out. So it really changed the nature of what you could do in a browser. So you could create interactivity within a browser. So we actually worked on a prototype. This was back in 2013. So we actually created a prototype of the menu system, and then we put it out to to our customers and other people, and just saying, hey, is this something you guys would use? And we got this oh my God, this is so great. Like, how has nobody created this? Like people were so fired up because they love that experience that they had, but they wanted to move it online, right? Like you don't want to be relegated to 480p into eternity. Like, sorry, you could fit about an hour and 40
or having to do
minutes.
some major post-production, because some of the things you just described, I mean, there's ways you can do it, but you need a whole suite of softwares, and it's not actually native to the video. You've now packaged it in a whole nother set of things to actually create any sort of that experience, which for most people is more work than they're honestly even capable of doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were seeing that. I mean, we saw that with our previous company, Precomposed Media, right? Like that was even the genesis for that, because we saw how much pain and time people are wasting trying to create a basic menu system that wasn't, just kind of this amazing experience. So that was even when we were creating these templates, we increased the workflow, we increased people's time, their time efficiency incredibly. And they also were able to produce amazing, amazing piece of content, amazing experience. And then, so we kind of took that idea and like, okay, how do we move this online? Because that's where the future is going. It's not physical media. It's not staying in, like DVD was a huge leap. But at the end of the day, like, we're talking about 4K video, 8K video. There's amazing cameras out there. And it's like DVD is at 480p. That's it. You max out, you get about an hour and 47 minutes, and that's it. So it's like, that's not the future. So we're like, well, how do we build the future? Because we can
as demonstrated by The Last Blockbuster, if you have not seen that movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, so I'm curious on that one, because then when I think about this from a use case standpoint, or even just kind of because to me, I think sometimes you could look at this and you could say, well, one or the other, but I see a world where potentially this is like it's not a either or, it's a both and type situation. Because we talked a little bit about some of the customers that you have, and I want to dig deeper into this workflow stuff, because I think that's some of the experience stuff that if you haven't actually done video production work, just gets completely overlooked. And you go, well, just put a quick video together. And it's like, well, no, there's no such thing. Like, I know everybody would like to think, well, everybody has a cell phone, so they can capture video. We can just quickly produce it and have a wonderful cinema quality production. But that's not the case. But I am curious, are there specific use cases or times where you go, this is where that experience really matters, or where you would go, obviously, ideally it'd be at all experiences, but the reality is there are some that I have to imagine you go, this really, really makes sense. Because we were talking a little bit about your customer base and times where you go, this is when it really stands above the others. Are there times where you see that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely a few, I would say kind of at a high level, there's a few key use cases. So I think really the first is if someone's paying for you to produce a final product, in my opinion, there's a different expectation there, right? So if I'm paying, like in our building here, right, they periodically, there's a company here and they'll film podcasts, like sports podcasts and stuff like that. And they have multiple cameras set up, DSLR, beautiful lighting and things like that.
So they're doing an actual production.
Yeah, they're doing a proper production, and the end they're going to do an amazing job in post-production. And so there's an expectation where it's like, that experience, not just the video, not just like clicking play, but like the entire experience of ingesting this video, if there's any additional assets and stuff, like there's a higher level of expectation. So just throwing that video up on YouTube or Dropbox or Google Drive, it's like, I get it. There's some functionality and there's some ease for if I'm the actual person doing that work, but for the end user, it's awful. You're like,
it's a terrible experience.
Why am I being subjected to this? This can all be done correctly. Why is this being done? And one of the other big use cases I would say for sure is like any type of like internal communication, B2B, even with external stakeholders. In my opinion, there should be this level of professionalism. Again, kind of going back to that experience, but how I'm ingesting this content, because we see this all the time. Like, okay, a specific use case, webinars, right? We did a whole series. We actually went and looked at all the different platforms. Like I registered for like 2 months, like every webinar I could register for, but I purposely didn't attend because I wanted the VOD. I wanted the video.
You wanted the video recording.
Yeah. I was like, send me the recording. Like, give me some, give me some data. And what we're finding is that, companies, even like Stripe, big companies, like they're doing unlisted links on YouTube talking about private content. Like you actually go watch the content. And you're like, wait, you guys are discussing some really important stuff here. Doing an unlisted link or a password protected link with just a single password, to me, it was just crazy. I was like, why is this being done? But I think a lot of people, they don't necessarily think, I don't think they're, they're intentionally trying to mess things up. I just don't think they think.
No, it's probably just a lack of knowledge and just convenience factor where it's like, well, I don't know what else to do.
Yep.
And I don't think there's really any other options. So this seems easy enough.
I would agree. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a lot of times we've seen, because we talk to some of these folks and we kind of find out, hey, help me understand. They're like, well, I just want to quickly get it out. Or we already had a YouTube account, or I have Dropbox or Google Drive, so I just put it up there. But kind of, what we really found, like when we really, really dig into the details, it's like oftentimes they find out, shortly thereafter or in the long term, like, man, there was some serious limitations on, resolution. The video wasn't encoded. It doesn't play back on mobile. It doesn't play back in Safari. Like there is a litany of things that, like, issues that we have been fixing over the last 9 years, like literally millions of dollars invested in engineering and R&D and on the product side of things, so that when you click play, it just works. Like that's the magic.
So I want to dig into some of these because I have some that come immediately to mind. And again, for folks who are watching, I'd love just to hear your perspective on kind of these. So if you're alt tab doing something else, here's your chance to kind of tab back into it. But like, what are some of those negative experiences that you run into that it's like, this is often dismissed as, well, that's just the cost of, doing business, that it's like, well, no, actually that's the cost of poorly choosing the way you manage your video. Cause I think one that just jumped out to me, while the org I'm with now is not global, previously, the last two orgs, they were global organizations. And oftentimes that creates a lot of problems for the end user experience that you don't realize, that you take for granted, because you might be like, well, we're in the States and we're all on high speed and maybe we have a YouTube premium account, so we don't even deal with the ad experience. So great, we'll throw it on there. Then all of a sudden you start getting the mess, or again, Dropbox. Oh, we'll just put it on Dropbox and send it out. And then you realize, oh, well, this person's not on the distribution list, and and it takes 9 hours for the thing to stream because it's a 8 gig, video file type of a thing, or you can't even upload it. What are some of the most common things that you go, you think this isn't that big of a deal, but I'm telling you, this is actually crushing your end user experience?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this could probably be like a 10-hour conversation, but I'll distill it down to like some of the core ones. But yeah, I would say that the first part that we've seen a lot is when there's content that really needs to stay private or there's security concerns.
Okay.
That one comes up a lot. And the really interesting part about this is this can be both for internal and external stakeholders. Like that use case where you have to keep content private, there's security issues, there's maybe IP that's in there, but you need to share it with potentially external stakeholders. It's not just internal.
Okay.
So you can't just keep
it might need to be shared, but it can't be just out in the ether type of a thing. Because this data privacy and security, and I want to go into this a little bit. To me, I feel like this is a topic that is grossly overlooked. And it's going to come back to haunt us, I think, in the near term. I mean, you go tell your CISO that you're like, well, I took this video that we shot of whatever. I just threw it on YouTube, but don't worry. I made it an unlisted link. So you should be good with that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's like just that right there. I would say that's like one of the biggest things that we've seen where people, and again, I don't think they're being malicious or being careless or anything like that. I think it's really just, they just don't really understand the ramifications. And so we see this all the time. Yeah. Unlisted YouTube links. Oh, I put a password on it, but it's a generic password that just can get, shared around, putting stuff on Dropbox, again, still making it public. And even sometimes that they make it downloadable too, which is, kind of crazy. People who have like webinars and it's just like, oh yeah, just download and things like that. So I would say, yeah, kind of one of the most important things that we've seen is really like
security and privacy.
Yeah, security and privacy, and just putting that at the forefront. Like, how important this video? Like, were they talking about sensitive topics? And then almost like running a case study, or like in your head, hey, if this video got out in the wild, let's say this thing went viral, are you okay with that? Like, are you okay if someone, gets a hold of the link and they post it on Twitter, and anybody who wants to has access to view it or download it. Like that's kind of the question. Like you almost want to go to that extreme and saying,
right. Is this something that if it got out could haunt you at some point?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of one of those things where, you really want to kind of take that into consideration. I would say another big thing.
I am curious before you go to the next one though.
Yeah, man.
How do you help with that piece? Because I think that's one of the things that, people do struggle with this. Okay, I know that this needs to be secure, but I also, like you said, I have a diverse audience that, because if you've ever tried to use like a file sharing thing and you're like, well, if I've got to add a list of people, like that list is constantly changing. And so how do you help with that? Because that is a real problem.
Yeah, for sure. So the way we tackled it, we call it digital delivery. That's kind of internally and externally what we refer to it as. But it's basically a way of sending content privately. So let's just say I had a piece of content. I said, hey, Christopher, I need to send this to you. You're outside of my organization, so we don't have the same domain. We basically dispatch a one-time use email that goes out to you, and it allows you to set up your free account, and then you take possession of this video or the project. And what's really cool is you can only watch that video while you're logged into your MediaZilla account. So there's multiple layers of security.
So you're actually authenticating it.
So we're authenticating it. We're making sure that's a one-time invite gets used. It's gone. There's additional.
You can't forward it on to somebody else to be like, oh, here, you watch the video too, and they forward it around.
It's linked to your email. There's like multiple layers of security. And so, because this use case came up really early on, where people are saying, like, for example, so you asked earlier kind of one of the use cases. So we have lots of members that do legal depositions. Okay. So one of our lifetime members, he's based in Indiana, so he does lots of legal depositions. So he delivers them through our platform to the law firm. So he's uploading to his account, and then he's digitally delivering it to the law firm. Well, these depositions can never see the light of day. So unlisted, link.
Oh yeah. I can only imagine.
Protecting, putting up on Dropbox. Hey, don't tell anyone about this Dropbox link and just download it.
Just keep it quiet. I trust that you won't.
Yeah. So we really thought deeply about this. We're like, okay, well, how do we actually solve this problem? Because there are lots and lots of use cases where it's like you have to get content to external stakeholders, and making something public for like an hour, and then, okay, did you download it? Did you get, did you take possession of it? And even then, if the other part of it too is even just going on top of that is, okay, well, do you even want to enable downloading? Like there were some great posts in LinkedIn yesterday. Some people in the community were asking about, hey, what about downloading progressive MP4s and things like that? Well, it's like some of this content you don't want the end user download. You just want them to, you want to control access. Like,
you want them to be able to stream it and see it, but you don't necessarily want them to keep a permanent copy of it somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that part, and it kind of, it's kind of bundled together with security and privacy, and also, making sure that you can actually deliver this.
Because I'm just even thinking about some of this stuff. So for learning and development folks, one of the challenges where I see this pop up a fair amount is for like new hires who haven't quite joined the organization yet. So they don't have a corporate email address. And so this is, I can tell you, I've been steeped in this battle with many organizations where you go, well, how do we get content to them before they start? But we don't necessarily want them sending it around to everybody, or we may have IP because we want it. We know we're hiring them. So there are things we know we can share with them because they've signed an employment agreement and whatever, but we don't necessarily want anybody else to see it, type of a thing. And to me, that one immediately pops to mind of when you're trying to reach those employees who aren't employees yet and they don't have a corporate email address. Or heck, sometimes those people don't get, I don't know how some other people's IT processes are, but sometimes that can be weeks after they start before they have access to it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a common use case. You think about, okay, well, maybe there's some onboarding, some training, some things about company culture, or there's things that you want them to watch ahead of time. Yeah, if they don't have, the MediaZilla domain or, Johnson & Johnson or GE or what have you, it's like, okay, well, how am I getting this content? And then I don't want to just send them, a file in an email, let them download it and things like that. So yeah, this is one method.
Good luck sending them a file if it's of any sort of quality type of thing. You're going to get the bounce back that it's too big anyway.
Over 25 megs, sorry. But
Okay.
but yeah, so yeah, so
yeah.
that part I think is really, really, like, it's a really interesting, and even though it seems simple, like, there's a lot of
No,
complexities behind the scenes. Like, we have invested years into perfecting that, setting up security parameters, like making sure that it's like when you log in, you're able to watch this content privately. You're not able to forward it. You're not able to download it. If you want to, sure, some of these options are available, but
yeah.
there's a lot of
You
stuff that just needs to be
customize it
locked
based
down.
on your use case, but you at least have the flexibility, which, like you said, I warned you I was going to go deep on some of these, like when I jump on, because these are things that could be easily glossed over and go, yeah, that doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. Well, no, it is. And I can think of even not only just workflow or not only just security issues, but even just workflows and workarounds that I've personally been involved with, or I've heard and seen other organizations do to try and like basically do media gymnastics to try and make some of this stuff work. And it's like, how much time and money are you spending? Because that's the thing. I think sometimes it's like, well, it's free.
Is it really?
Define free, like define free, because it's not free. The time and energy going into it and the degraded user experience, that comes at a cost, whether you can actually easily quantify it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there's one. Are there any other big ones that jump out where you go, this is something that, really pops up? You said there's a handful that immediately come to mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say another big one, I kind of refer to almost as like video fundamentals. So just like kind of core fundamentals. So uploading, transcoding, and playback. And what do I mean by this is, when the pandemic, took hold, one of my good friends, he's a chemistry professor. And so we connected because obviously like tons of schools, organizations, like overnight, boom, I gotta be a video organization. I've never done video. I've never streamed anything. And what
now everything has to be video.
Everything's video. But the biggest thing we found is that people were, they were using kind of maybe what they knew, or maybe a solution that I'm somewhat familiar with. But a lot of them, like obviously the schools use different types of LMSs, so Blackboard, Moodle, things like that, right? And so some of them, like
Google Drive,
they like loosely say, "Oh, we support video and things like that." And so I was just helping him out. I was like, "Here, dude, let's test this out, man," because he's like, "I have to record all my Zoom sessions, I have to put them up," and then we're putting them up. He's uploading them to the LMS. And then we're like, okay, let's try to play this thing back. And it was abysmal. Like some of them, they don't really even support playback in the LMS. So you're actually just the users are downloading the files and playing it locally, which is kind of crazy. And then a lot of these platforms, they don't transcode multiple versions, which, when you're thinking about it, okay, let's just say, for example, I filmed, so like even on my phone, right? I can film something in 4K, 1080p, pretty high resolution. So back to your earlier point, great. If I got fantastic bandwidth, if I'm on 5G and I'm trying to play back, probably not an issue. But when you're thinking about, I have audience members all over the world. They have different device sizes. They have different internet connections. Like
schools are, I just think schools, they're in all different areas. You can't guarantee people have broadband cable T1 connections at their house. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like, a big part that we've seen is just the fundamentals of being able to play back a video without it buffering forever, without it stopping, even just being able to load. And even though it seems straightforward, right? Like, most people, they're used to a pretty good experience. Like even on YouTube has multiple encoded versions. People don't realize too, like when you're watching videos, even on like Netflix and things like that, when that wheel's spinning initially, when it's loading, it's actually doing like a latency check. It's looking at what device you have, it's looking at the TV resolution, and then it's serving up the optimal file size. As crazy as it sounds, some movies, they have up to 240 versions encoded of the same movie.
Really?
So it can serve you up the perfect version and create the optimal, like,
so it's actually doing a little rapid assessment of what is this user doing, where are they right now, and let's make sure that the video experience they have is optimal for them.
Yeah. And so the question you ask is, what are the downsides, or what are the challenges that we see? It's like, well, the company, these services where video isn't it's really not in their DNA. It's not.
They're not thinking about it. It's an afterthought.
Yeah, you're gonna get these issues where it's like buffering issues. Maybe the video is in super low quality. Like, why is this all pixelated? Like, I don't get it. I'm used to seeing beautiful 4K video. Like, why is this video all pixelated? Maybe there's limits. Like a lot of these, even Dropbox and Google Drive, some of these ones, Google Drive specifically, there's daily bandwidth limits that they don't really tell you about. So we've seen it, like we did a bunch of research. So if you hit more than bandwidth, you're going to get a notification. Sorry, you hit your max limit today. No more views are allowed. And you're like, wait, I didn't understand. But it's like, yeah, because Google Drive is not meant to stream video. You know, Dropbox is not meant to stream video.
Right.
Most LMSs,
it's meant to store it, and if you can need to pull it down or access it or something like that, it's again, it's an asset management and not a personal perspective, not a great one for this kind of stuff, but it's more of an asset management structure versus a kind of end user experience side.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say like kind of in combination that too, one of the big issues too is as crazy as it sounds is just browser support. Like I know it seems like, oh, it should just work in Chrome and Firefox and Safari and then on mobile, but I can just tell you from personal experience behind the scenes, like there's a lot of nuances between the different browsers. And Safari usually has the most, like we kind of jokingly internally saying like Safari is kind of like the new Internet Explorer, but yeah, it's widely used, right? Like I'm in Safari on some of these applications, stuff like that, you know, especially on mobile, it's the default for iOS, but there's a ton of nuances where like, wait, this works fine in Chrome and Firefox. Like we have no issues. And then, oh, Safari, we're like, so we just kind of accept it. We're like, yeah, you know, we got to do some testing. Okay, we found the issue. We got to update some of the CSS, the styling. Okay, maybe there's this issue the way it's loading the video. But those are like these nuanced things that maybe, you know, the average person's not going to think about. Like, yeah, I just put up a video and it should work fine. But then, you know, you find out after the fact, you're like, man, none of my users can watch this in Safari. None of my users can watch this on mobile. You know, my users having all Windows, you know, on a Edge, it's having all these issues. So, but we're sweating those details. We're like, no, this has to work. Yeah, like this needs to work. These just when you click play, it's got to play back perfectly.
Well, and I think going back to and I want to, there's a direction I want to go with this after this, but your kind of final 2 points with this. I mean, we talk a lot about the end user experience in our industry in terms of, you know, creating this extraordinary experience, but some of these things, I don't always know that we put the lens of detail on some of this, because some of these things can actually be pretty catastrophic. Like what you described, it's not something you go, you know, it's not that really that big. No, this is kind of a big deal. If you've got a 3 gig recording of something that like is critical to your end users to see, and you just send it out and only 30% of the people can even access it, or the other 40% are waiting 12 hours to download it because the thing is so big and their bandwidth is so low that it was not optimized. They can't even do it. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I posted an infographic last week, and this is where the connection comes in, where one of the things that frustrates workers more than anything is software and system experience. It's like one of the biggest factors that irritates them about their job. And this is the kind of stuff that when I think of use cases where you go, hey, this is really important, watch this video. And then they go to do it and the experience is a dumpster fire, which a lot of times we're just like, well, it'll be fine because we assume, well, the experience was fine for me. I put it here, you know, I have this, I did this, I used this, and it was fine. And assuming, well, everybody else will have the same experience I did. And oftentimes that is not the case. Even assuming browser is something that I think a lot of times people take for granted. Oh, everybody's using Chrome. Really? I don't, you know, type of a thing. And you can run into serious problems with that kind of stuff. And it can seriously have a negative impact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, just to kind of touch on a couple things there. So like one thing you brought up, about, you know, we kind of jokingly, like with our engineering team, it works on my machine, it works locally, you know, before you push it up. That's like a really common, you know, phrase in engineering. But yeah, like if you're uploading a video, right? So maybe you're, it's even on your on-prem system, or like as crazy as it sounds, like sometimes we'll have people like, oh, I'll just host it on my own server, on my website, on my Squarespace or Webflow page. And it's like, the thing you're not thinking about is like, yeah, if you have customers, if you have employees, if you have team members all over the world that need to watch this content, you know, your little server or whatever it's being served up from locally, it's not, the latency might be crazy going all the way across the world. So having, you know, what's referred to as like a content delivery network, you know, having something like that where it can be propagated to multiple locations It finds what the nearest server is. It replicates the file. It handles, if you have millions of views and things like that. And so, CDN's been around for a while. You have Akamai and Amazon has CloudFront and things like that. But like, again, going back to kind of this core fundamentals, like that part's super important. And it ties right into the user experience. Like if I have an hour to spend on training, I used to work at Toyota, right? I worked at Toyota Financial Services for 5 years. And, we had a lot of really important responsibilities that we had in our department. And, there were certain trainings that we were required to take. Some stuff was optional. But, you wanted to optimize your time. Like, okay, hey, I allocated an hour to do this training. Well, yeah, if you're wasting, 10, 15 minutes because the video's loading or you have to reload it or it's not intuitive, and then you amplify that across maybe thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees, you realize like, it's just a really, really bad experience and it's unnecessary. I think that's the part of it too. It's like, in this day and age,
you don't have to. You don't have to do that, right? Yeah. Well, and it's funny because as you're sharing this, all of a sudden I had I don't know what a daytime nightmare is, but whatever that is, because I remember I won't mention which organization, but I was supporting an organization in a capacity, and there was this huge video initiative tied to a product launch. I mean, it was massive. Like this was big. There was a fair amount of like campaigning, but also some training associated that all had to be done as tied to this product launch. And if you've been in big organizations, product launch is not like, oh, we had a mistake. Not a big deal. We'll just do it next week, guys. Just don't sweat it. Like this was big. And I remember we did not put the time and thought into the video aspect that we probably should have. Now, granted, this was, a little while back, but we learned the lesson the hard way because like we announced it. It was like time to go. Hey, everybody, like get started. Here's all your resources. Boom, boom, boom. We crashed the server and it wasn't like my Dell Optiplex sitting in my, this was like we crashed the server and it delayed the entire, we actually lost a lot of revenue because the entire product line was delayed as a result of this launch, just completely taking down the server, and basically everything we'd hinged on it. We're like, well, the whole thing's dependent on what could possibly go wrong. Well, everything did, and I go back to that and go, yeah, sometimes we just dismiss these things as, it's not really that big of a deal, or what really could go wrong. Which maybe if you're dealing on small scale or a consequential, like you said, whatever the viral cat videos, yeah, okay, fine. There's really no consequences to it. But if you're talking about serious things, you're talking major dollars and cents.
Yeah. There's definitely big ramifications. We have some customers that delivered some super important videos, and especially even there's content on their website. Like we have a lot of one of our customers in he's based in Long Island, so he does work for Make-A-Wish Foundation. He does a lot of commercial work. There's a company called Dealer Track, so they make software products for car dealerships and stuff like that. And they have a lot of this content embedded on their site. So it's not even just like, okay, I have some internal and external stakeholders that are going to kind of watch it when they want.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is how does this play then with other things? Because to assume people are always going to one destination to see things, it doesn't always work that way. A lot of times this media is being injected or embedded into other capabilities or other locations.
Yeah. There's content that, will sit inside of an LMS. There's content that's going to sit embedded on your website. There's content that, you need to keep private. So you're just going to deliver to other people. And so, ideally you want a solution that can tackle all those mediums. But while still keeping these kind of core fundamentals together, right? Where it's like you have, someone who's actually thought about the details for how video should work, how it should stream, what the end user experience is going to be. And you have things like you're thinking about privacy and security. These are like built into the core fundamental of the platform. And then I would say thirdly, really this amazing user experience, like that can't get lost in the mix, because we've seen a lot of platforms where, they're good at, I would say, like on the technical side of things. So like Wistia, for example, like it's actually a pretty good product, but really their core fundamental is I have a standalone video and I'm going to give you amazing analytics. And that's about it. So if that's your use case, I get it. It solves that need, it solves that use case. But as soon as you expand beyond, they were like, wait, this video can't be public. Wait, I have 10 videos that are all part of a collection or all part of the same theme. I don't want 10 embedded videos on my site. You know, it's cluttered. You know, I have some really important topics that they can't see the light of day. So these are the types of things where, you know, we think about really dearly and try to understand, like, okay, well, how do we actually solve, you know, this issue? Because at the end of the day, we really kind of like try to distill down what are really the important factors. And like making a video public is quite easy. Like when the dust settles, to upload a video and make it public and send it around, that's easy. But the hard part is if something has to say private and secure and you want to create an amazing experience, like that part's really, really hard. And there's very few companies that really do that well, that want to put the time into really doing that part well.
Okay. Got it. Well, so one other thing, and I saw you pulled something up. So let me know if you want to switch directions or if there's somewhere specifically you want to go with that. Because I've got a question about kind of behind the scenes workflow, but I had one follow-up question before that. Because I think you hit on something that may not necessarily be, could easily be overlooked. Is we talked a lot about this functionality, which could be misinterpreted as, okay, so you get that experience like if you go directly to the video location, right? Like I'm thinking like workflow. You go to YouTube, you actually go there. But that's a lot of times not where people are consuming videos, because a lot of times, like you said, they're consuming it maybe through their LMS or through their corporate intranet page or blah, 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 whatever that is. And honestly, first of all, a lot of platforms don't even let you embed very well. It's terrible at it. And even if you do, a lot of times it's like this really broken deep link code that doesn't really play nicely with things. And you lose, honestly, all of the functionality that goes along with it. And if I'm hearing you right, that functionality, that important functionality we're talking about, sustains regardless of where people end up consuming it, correct?
Yeah. I mean, that's the way our embed code works is really, it's technically it's using you know, an iframe to actually embed some of this content. But yeah, you're basically still getting the content and you're still getting the security parameters that are around there.
Okay.
So we spend a lot of time kind of perfecting that. So, you know, if you want to, whether it's getting rid of any of the, you know, not seeing the MediaZilla URL, but you want to keep this great experience. And yeah, if you want to share screen, I can kind of show your audience some of the stuff that we're talking about. So, you know, this is basically referred to as a collection. So this is kind of like a final product. So, you know, you guys are probably super familiar with, you know, obviously embedding a video or standalone video, but this was going back to the early days when we were talking about, you know, what is that end user experience and wanting to create, you know, kind of like that DVD and Blu-ray experience. You know, this is basically we have. So, you know, what we're looking at is, we call it a collection, but you have kind of your main menu. And then, you know, this is just a demo that we created. And you have sub menus and you have multiple videos, and you can go to the cool thing is, you know, you can make this a simple.
And that's built into the video.
Yeah. So this is basically this is what we call a collection. So these are all linked to the videos. So it's really cool is, you can, because this is this is like a super common use case that came up where people were saying, hey, I have a product line.
There's a pathway of videos, or there's relevant or related videos tied to it, but you don't necessarily want people to have to remember 16 different locations where they have to go, or like, well, what order are these in, or all this other stuff.
Yeah. And then what's cool too is we actually just, this got added in a few weeks ago, but you can actually add in external links too. So like in this instance, we actually had a Google Doc for things that we're sharing, or maybe there's a link to, you know, a certain document and things like that. But the idea here is just having all of the project assets or video assets in one place. And, you know, you asked, you know, what are common things that we see? Well, it's very common where there's multiple videos for one project. And so
for sure,
we've seen one approach,
especially with the trend in our industry, which is how do we make content more consumable, right? Rather than this 60-minute video that you have to sit and watch, how do we maybe break it into more relevant chunks so that people can say, okay, well, these are the different chunks and sections, and I want to consume it in a digestible fashion versus maybe. And so that is, I mean, it's a common trend that we're running into.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
but they're still related.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's really the big thing is, you have a lot of these related videos or related topics, you know, and you want to deliver them. The beauty of this too is, you know, it's in one deliverable. So you have one URL that's not going to change. Because an alternative that we've seen is where, you know, you've probably seen this before. There's 10 links in an email to, you know, Zoom cloud recording or Google Drive or Dropbox or Vimeo, what have you. And then potentially,
and that's what I was trying to, I'm trying to like, and that's what I'm trying to unpack, to make sure that what you're showing is relevant to kind of unpack, because you could easily gloss over that and misunderstand that and go, oh, so it's still like a bunch of different videos. And it's like, well, right. But yes, packaged together in a user experience that leads a single URL. Because like that use case you just said, where it's like, hey, here's the series of whatever videos, and there's 10 links. They're all relevant and related, but now you're managing access to 10 different things. It's a disparate user. I mean, it gets very messy very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, we have like, this is even one, you know, we eat our own dog food, if you will. So like
it's just crazy because it doesn't look like a video. That's the part that is very different, is that does not look like a video. It looks, like you said, like a DVD. Like you're going through the menu system in the video.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was really kind of the genesis. Like when we talked about, you know, early in the conversation, is really, how do we take that experience, that, you know, online DVD, online Blu-ray, you know, experience that people are used to navigating, having all these assets, and how do we move that online and just make it like a seamless experience? And that's where we spend a ton of time just perfecting that, building, you know, we built a prototype, and then we've just been perfecting over the last 9 years. You know, so that part. And here, I'll just show you a quick, you know, as an alternative. Okay, so let's look up, you know, maybe the
here we go. Here's the alternative.
The other end of the spectrum. It's like, I get it, right? This is mainly a consumer, but people, you know, they put up a lot of really important videos on here, and I don't think people always necessarily think through the user experience. So back to your other point, you go down the rabbit hole, you know, the recommendation. And I'm on.
You came out to watch a training video on what we need to do with leadership, and next thing you know, you're watching about King Charles III and what does he have to do to wear the crown, type of a thing.
Yeah, and the big thing too here is, you know, there's and Vimeo even has, not as bad as this, but a lot of times there's a huge amount of distraction. I think that's, you asked about one of the challenges. I think that's one of the biggest things, where it's like, well, what is the goal? You know, I'm sure a lot of your audience, you're saying, hey, I want my associates focused on, you know, a particular topic, or getting
we're battling distractions.
Yeah.
We're battling massive distractions.
Yeah. I mean, you figure, you know, to a certain degree, we're all kind of in an attention economy, even within a company. And so if you're kind of like, if you make it seamless, where it's like, here, boom, go here, here's the specific assets you need to watch, here's all the resources, there's no distractions and things like that. But then you have something else where, you know, it's like, where do I actually put my attention? What am I supposed to focus on? Like, I have all these options here, I have all these videos. And then, you know, one of the challenges too, where it's like, okay, you know, even if I go into, you know, a video here, again, ads, of course, there's gonna be ads. And not a lot of people realize this too, is YouTube actually updated their policy last year, where they can run ads on any video. So even if you don't have monetization turned on, because normally you have to hit several thousand subscribers and so many hours a view, they eviscerated that, where they can run ads on any video that they want. So, you know, is this relevant to your audience? Is this congruent with your brand, with, you know, the company culture?
Well, and even the recommended videos that pop up next to it, again, and I think the point that you're getting at, and again, I mean, even the comments can take you down the rabbit hole. Yeah. You're like, oh, what does this say? I mean, again, I love the way you framed it. In the attention economy, we are competing against a lot. And so anything we can do to say, hey, how do we reduce some of these competitive factors? When we're talking about video, this is a real factor. And I think this is one of the things we often take for granted, is like, when we just say, oh, we'll just slap it up on YouTube and send out a link to people. It's like, well, you've now just added not only a layer of complexity that massively degrades the user experience, but you've actually added distraction on top of their already overloaded like they were already distracted with everything else. You just got these people to maybe click on the thing that you asked them to click on amidst their other distractions. And now you go, here's 500 other distractions that are probably going to capture your attention equally or more, because it's like, oh, well, I didn't know that was going on this week. Like, let me see what this is.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of jokingly say, like, most people, they're no match for YouTube's algorithm. Like, you have data scientists, you have psychologists, like, you're just thinking like, oh, this was a relevant video that popped up, and oh, man, I might like watching it. But it's like, no, there's a lot of science. There's a lot of smart people that are working behind the scenes, updating that algorithm. So they're trying to serve it and keep you engaged.
Well, they want your attention. Going back
Absolutely.
to attention economy. And I think what we're getting at here is, as the designer, who do you want to be controlling their attention? And I think that's a really important factor to consider is, do you want them at the mercy of someone else who does not have your interest in mind? They have theirs. So they're commanding for their attention. And if anything, they want to actually distract your audience with the stuff that they think is going, because this is where you can go down the AI rabbit hole. But I mean, ultimately, they may know better than you do. They're not interested in what you just sent them to. This is not going to capture their attention. We've got better stuff for them, and we can distract them with that better stuff and actually pull their attention off of this. And I think that is one of those things where when you actually start thinking about this, this isn't just like a convenience factor or a nice to have. This can dramatically impact the efficacy or even the reach that you have with what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, when we really looked at this and we really analyzed the market, and especially early days, you're saying, hey, what got our attention and why and I guess the big thing for us is like, going back to kind of our reason for being is like, yeah, there's a lot of really, really important videos that people need to watch. There's important content they need to digest. And you want to be able to get your message directly to them without all these crazy distractions. You want to create this amazing experience. You don't want them, going through this painful process, this arduous process where videos aren't playing or I'm hitting bandwidth limits and stuff like that. And the cool thing is now is like this can all be, it's all done correctly. There's companies like us that like we fret over all these little details. Like I was on a call yesterday with my co-founder, and like literally we were looking at like there was an information button. We're like, wait, we need to move that down 1 pixel. Like we need to increase the font. Like literally like 1 pixel. We're like, wait, that's off. Like what's the center line on download? Because it was on the analytics page, and we're like, no. Like the font's a little bit too big. Okay, is there a drop shadow on there? So it's kind of but those are the things that we actually think about. Like when we're talking about the engineering team, we're like, okay, man, this video played, but there was a little bit of latency. Okay, what happened? Let's go check the browser console. And like, so these are the types of things that you want a company to fret about and actually think about, because it's going to come out in the product.
So that you don't have to, because that's the thing. I mean, you may be watching or listening to this going, this is a rabbit hole that like my head hurts thinking about all these things. And it's like, good, because that should be something that then lets you go, so I should be looking for somebody who is as concerned about that, because I don't have the capacity to be concerned about all these things, nor should I be. So let me figure out who is concerned about that, that is actually guarding that user experience with a degree of depth that I'm just not even capable of.
Yeah. You want people at the end of the day, look, you want people that are going to make your life better and make your job easier. Video is incredibly, incredibly powerful. But it's really hard. Like internally, we jokingly say video is hard. Like that's our mantra internally. So, as silly as it sounds, like there's so much truth to it where it's really powerful, but behind the scenes, it's really complex. And, there's probably a 10-hour discussion we could have on all the other complexities there. But you want a company.
People listening are like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed with what we're talking about.
But like you want people like us saying, we're going to make your life better. Like you just upload the video. You go in, you customize.
You don't worry about this complexity.
Yeah, you focus on the things that you do really, really well, and we'll handle this back end piece of it, this unsexy piece of video, that you can create this amazing end user experience, and your people are going to love you, and you put forth this great content. Because I know, like, we see the content that our members create; it's amazing. Like some of the content they create, some of the product demos, the webinars, the employee training, like the content is amazing. And so you want that user experience to be congruent. You don't want there to be some crazy mismatch, because people will remember a bad experience. We talk about, deliver an amazing experience, because, a great video can be ruined by a bad experience. So there's no reason why they both can't have importance, in the world that we live in.
Okay. Well, like I said, I told you we'd get to the end and not even have touched the surface. But I mean, if anything, like I said, if you're listening or watching this and going, I'm like overwhelmed, I honestly think that's a good thing. I really do. I think that's a good thing, because that should, to your point, video is hard. And I don't think in our industry, we always recognize it as such. It's like, oh, video's the big thing. Videos, so that must mean it's easy. Because it's the big thing, because it's a big trend, it must be easy. And it's not. It's not. And there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, but that doesn't mean it has to be complex for you. And that's where this kind of thing can actually help. And by the way, I'm going to pull this one back up one more time, because the video doesn't look like video. And I think that is something that, you know, when you think about, I mean, I just even think back to, like, I'm trying to think of, like, when Gladiator first came out on as an example, that experience of putting in the DVD and being able to find what you needed. You knew you were going to watch the movie Gladiator, but there were other things that were relevant, and it was all encompassed in an end user experience. That kind of experience is not something that I've seen on other video platforms. It still feels very similar. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me when looking at these examples is it's a video, but not in the same way that you may be limiting yourself in terms of, oh, well, a video is this and that's all it can be. No, it actually can be quite a lot more. So I really appreciate you making the time today. This was fun. This was fun. One of those geeky kind of nerdy conversations where we go into depths, but again, I think some really, really helpful stuff. So thank you for making the time.
Yeah, my pleasure, Christopher. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, and if you guys ever have any questions, anything I can do to help, you guys can just reach me directly, just michael@MediaZilla.com. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, but I'm always happy to help. You know, I know the work you guys are doing is incredibly important. So if there's anything I can ever do to help you, provide any resources, please let me know.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching and listening. And I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for being here. And yeah, we will be back next week. Have a great week, everyone.